you're gonna make me faint, right? So I think I'm gonna have to give you like my whole heart eyes emoji that I have in my phone, and I'm about to like dead, like really faint. You send me a video for like that again, I'm gonna faint, I'm gonna pass out. Somebody gonna ask me like, what's wrong? Why he's on the floor?
I guess we got to talk. Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Bird 91. Yes, we're talking to you guys about Yandy and Mendeeces. This is more of an updated one because, I want to say this. I've been doing this new series called She is Grace to, or He is Grace to. And I want to say this. Listen, Yandy is Grace to deal with this situation with Mendeeces. What do I mean by this? I mean, listen, we knew that Yandy was trying to cover up this situation with Mendeeces earlier on, when it was spoken about that he was out here in the fields, and she tried to play it out like she had texted the girl through DMs and pretended as if it was it was her that was messaging the girl back, when in reality we all knew that Yandy, it wasn't you, it was him. And when you see, you can't stop a man doing what he wants to do. A man who's unrelenting in the spirit to want to do something and is committed to the sin, you can't actually stop him. And it's funny because Yandy in this particular space was trying to hide the truth from us when she actually really is hiding the truth from herself. Look, a lot of women do this because, especially in public relationships, there's a pressure to maintain the image and a status quo, to maintain the perfect relationship. And what that ends up doing is that ends up covering a man in grace when he doesn't need it, because he's unwilling to yield. This is not the Lord and his relationship with you. Let the Lord be unconditional in his favor and his love for you. But when it comes to marriage, God gave people an out. I don't know if they're even married. So God gave them an out. If they commit adultery, that was an out. Why? Because it is a form of trauma and abuse when that person consistently cheats on you. And Mendeeces is going to consistently do this because Yandy is willing to apply grace when there is no need to apply the grace. And I get it, admitting that you've been betrayed, admitting that this man no longer serves you in the same way, admitting that this man no longer holds you in the regard that he once previously held you in because you stood your ground and stayed with him when he was in prison. But the reality of the situation is, this man isn't standing beside you. Yandy, don't become graced to stand in a place of sin and indulge with him in this particular sin, right? If he wants to go and do this, let him go down that lane, because sometimes we say things like, oh, I knew something was off, but I couldn't say it out loud. I didn't want everyone to say I told you so, right? So instead of admitting he was cheating, you kind of, said that it was you messaging another girl to save face. Now look what's happened, right? Because the sin has been covered up and not been dealt with in this particular aspect, right? It's now multiplied. And that tends to happen for a lot of people. Once they go down this particular lane, right? I know love covers a multitude of sins, but it's not when it's covering this person when they're now cheating on you and exposing you to the rest of the world. That's a completely different aspect. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Right? And so for me, you would think that, shame, you would think that shame would make him want to stop. But we saw with Adam and Eve in the garden, that didn't stop anybody, right? In fact, it caused Adam to not take accountability and blame Eve. In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve were in the garden and Eve ate the fruit, and yet Adam failed to take any accountability for the fact that he was one that was told the instruction, and to hold his girl to account, he couldn't do it. And so he ended up blaming the woman, saying, the woman is that you gave me, right? When you allow people to break your boundaries several times over, they will turn around and blame you. So instead of facing the public humiliation, and to be honest, Yandy, we would have backed you. A lot of people would have backed Yandy. A lot of people would have said, you know what, Yandy, you did your best, you tried, you held a man down, he didn't respect it. Move on. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Move around, right? But unfortunately, you're staying longer, and it's becoming ugly, and you're having more egg on your face, and you're being disrespected, and you're being dragged through the mud furthermore, showing even more distinct lack of respect, right? And so some women would rather twist that narrative in order to keep the marriage and to keep the image here, right? When deep down they know they feel shame and they feel embarrassment. They want to hide away and cover themselves with fig leaves, but they realize that even with that, they can't hide away from the truth. But yet they want to still try and portray that because they don't want no one to, say anything bad about them, or, even say anything bad about their partner, because just in case they might go back. You know what I'm saying to you? So you stood by him, but he's disrespected you, right? At this point, silence is the best thing. Handle it behind closed doors, whether it's got to be legal, whether it's got to be, in court. I don't know what you got to do, but you got to do what you got to do. Okay. All right. So I understand why Yandy might not be coming out all the way out the woodwork saying, listen, yep, that's it. Let me hang him out to dry. I get it because they got kids together, but also as well, it's hard to do so, right? Because you have to come to your realization and look at yourself in the mirror. Now, I want to say this: cheating is such a bad mind thing, and I've been there, so I understand. It's such a bad mind thing because it doesn't just affect the person in the relationship. Cheating affects the kids, and they got kids together. The kids are going to see this, no matter how much he spins it and tells stories. And I get it. Listen, don't get it twisted. I never liked how Yandy treated him when it came to the thing about the surrogacy. And there was too many women out here screaming and shouting, saying, "Oh my gosh, it's her body; she can do what she wants." Not when you're married, darling. Yeah. So I was totally understanding where you're going, but you can't then start cheating. If you want to quit the relationship, be done. Right? Be separated, be done. But don't then start cheating. That's not helpful. Right? It's also damaging not only to your relationship, but it's damaging to your children. It's damaging to your own reputation as well. Right? Now, the reality of the situation is because Yandy's giving him all this grace and covering for him in uncoverable positions, it really just makes him realize that you're the one that fears losing him. Okay. He now knows that when a man like Mendeeces, and I'm saying like because other men will cover you in your weakness. The Bible says, "In my weakness, Christ is made strong." Look, the Bible says, "Love covers a multitude of sins." It's patient, it's enduring. It doesn't boast, right? It's not trying to do wrongs. So when you really have love for that person, you're not trying to expose their weaknesses. You're covering them. So he can see this, but he's not going to cover you. Okay. So the loyalty that you have for him is a license for him to disrespect you. And oftentimes, public embarrassment isn't accidental. It's oftentimes negligence, which is born out of the fact that the person doesn't respect you or care about you, right? You might be saying, "I knew I had his back through jail, through everything," and you feel like you've emotionally invested, and I get it. But he's now out here entertaining other side chicks. Baby, don't compete with the side chicks. Be out, right? Like I always said, one of the best weapons a woman can do, okay, is silence. Silence and move forward. Trust me, it will shake the core of his earth and his world, right? But silence from Mendeeces' side, and not saying anything about the side chick that's gonna come up and embarrass not only him, but embarrass you as well, embarrass the family name, embarrass the reputation, right? Instead of clearing the air, people like Mendeeces went quiet. They don't want to deal with the drama. They don't want to deal with the fact that they were messaging other women. You know what I mean? They might have other women on rotation, other women that are wanting him, other women that are not you. But that silence leaves room for people to come out and say things, and then you're left exposed. Right? He didn't deny it. He hasn't really said sorry yet. Right? He just let you get yourself all worked up, and now you having to lie on a crazy scale. Baby, don't be graced to love somebody to the point where they're now embarrassing you, and they're also making you having to be Dulu, because now Yandy's in the space of Dulu. I said this in the last video, and now the evidence has come out. That's crazy work. I don't care if he says get a lawyer. Don't join him. You see, when you start joining him in his Delulu, that's where you start losing your sanity. And you don't want to go there. Don't be graced to deal with craziness. Okay? The truth always comes out, especially when a side chick feels like they're getting played too. Now, I don't know what the side chick's main issue is. I don't know if she went to Yandy with the information first. I don't know if Yandy turned her away the way that Yandy behaved the last time. I don't know if Yandy would even listen. Okay? All right? So side chicks normally stay silent until they feel they're actually disrespected, which is probably what happened with Shannon Sharp, right? Side chicks gonna be real quiet until their emotions get caught up and they're maybe wanting a bit more and they can't get that more anymore. Maybe he never promised her, he never promised he would be her lover. He never promised that maybe, but she might have felt like, okay, it's cool for now, but then really start catching feelings. And when she asked for it, he's like, no, you know I was always gonna write to my wife. And those feelings can make her act crazy and want her to go and do the worst. Whichever way it is, right? That side chick has now come out and done it in public. Okay. Now she can't be coming out acting all high and mighty and high bougie, the side chick, because you was a side chick. And not only were you a side chick, you were also happy to play your position and happy to play with Mendeeces. Okay. So I can also see why sometimes ladies be like, no, you're not trying to be a girl's girl. You're just exposing it because you feel like you didn't get your pounds cake's worth. Mm. Listen, Yandy, I just don't want you to be graced to have to deal with this kind of behavior on a regular basis. It's time to wake up and smell the Kenko coffee. Sometimes you got to let people drown. In fact, the Bible talks about how Paul said, cast that person, let them be onto Satan. Let Satan rebuff them. Sometimes you got to let people out to hang to dry and let them learn a heavy lesson. Sometimes we don't, by you standing in the gap and saving them, you are saving them from you're saving them, but you're actually allowing them to fester in their nonsense and their stupidity. And you have to allow people to sometimes down the hill. You have to sometimes let people do some stupid stuff, get caught out, get whipped up a little bit, and let them learn a lesson. Because one thing you're going to need to hold is your dignity and your respect. And you do that by honoring your boundaries. You do not concede your boundaries to now say, I'm texting gal. Or, because now look where we are. You said you were texting that girl. Look, it's another girl. Now you look silly, right? So we don't have to cover up foolishness. You know what I'm saying to you when it comes to fidelity in a relationship, because people will always take advantage of you. They really respected you. They wouldn't be doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Still uploaded. Don't be grace to come and stay in this cheating situation.